What's up, Spartans? I know I just don't say it as good as Joe does. Sorry. Dr. L here, your chief mind doc for Spartan. It is Friday. It is 3 p.m. Eastern time. We are a little delayed because of technical difficulties, because everybody wants to be on the internet right now, getting support from each other, answering the question, what do we do now? How do we get through this? How are you coping? How can I still connect even though we're engaged in lockdowns and social distancing and sheltering? So I'm here for you. I'm here with you. And I'm super pumped today because what we're going to be talking about today is really just a lot of stuff. So many people are in kind of different positions right now in terms of what they're struggling with and what they're having a difficult time with, and kind of the mindset struggles that are going on up here. So I sent out on Instagram and various social channels, what do you want to know about? What is troubling you right now? What tips could you use? So I'm just going to walk through a bunch of stuff today, kind of like an incredible melting pot of coping skills to help you at home. And while we're live in live time, if you have questions, if you are struggling with something, or you are really proud of something and you want to share, by the way, great, go for it. But if you need some help, in any way, shape, or form, say hello, ask a question, engage, and we'll get to it for sure. So first of all, let me just introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. I'm Dr. Al. I'm the chief mind doc here at Spartan. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and my role really is to help connect the body performance and the body physical health to the mind and the mental health that all of us are experiencing, or, are moving through this time. So I'm here. So I've been here for 2 years. So it's not like they just brought me on board because they're like, we need a psychologist. Joe recognized that this mindset piece, this mental resiliency piece is critical, right, to our well-being and our functioning as humans, in the way that we can show up for ourselves and for each other and contribute. So I've been here for a little bit, and I'm thrilled to be able to serve you at this point in time when we're feeling stressed and when there's chaos and when a lot of us are going through a time of struggle. So I'm here and I'm pumped and I'm excited. Put your questions in. Let me answer them. All right. So one of the things that people have asked the most about, it's at my number one list right now, is how do I create a routine, right? So there's a bunch of you right now that, if you're lucky enough to still, be in a place of employment, have been sent home and are working from home. And you're really wondering, how do I create a routine at home, right? So how do I make a day that feels as structured as it would if I had an actual physical place to go to? And there are others of you too that I think, even if you've worked from home before, or, been able to work out of your home, this is a little bit different, right? Like, there have been things that have been thrown at us, whether it's now you have your kids at home, or now you have your roommate at home, or now you have your spouse at home, that might make your routine a little bit different. So I'm going to go through just a few tips that I have for you for creating a routine. The first is do it. Nobody is above a routine. Now, I know I've had a bunch of my clients in particular say things like, but I'm like 35 years old. Do I really need a schedule for the day? Yes. Primal people, like right now, our brain is interpreting so many things as a threat, right? Like the outside world is unsafe. Shaking hands is unsafe. I don't know if my job is secure, right? So there's threats all over the place. And so our brain is really kind of activating its most primal parts. And so we need to activate our own foundation and grounding for keeping ourselves stable. And one of the best ways to do that is to integrate structure. And I'm going to get even more primal than that and have you actually write it down, like literally. Okay, at 6 a.m., I'm going to wake up. If you're a Spartan, it's probably 5, right? At 6 a.m., I'm going to wake up. I'm going to, do my morning routine at 6:30, from 6:30 to 7. At 7 a.m., I'm going to have breakfast. Like literally take out a piece of paper, put it into a grid, and write it down every single time. And here are the things that I want you to consider when you write down that schedule. I'm going to emphasize write it down like 12 times. So just be prepared to get sick of it. One, make it manageable, okay? So one of the things that I'm seeing a lot of people do is they're falling into what I call, or I don't call it, it's called the planning fallacy, which is when we actually overestimate our capabilities. So one of the things that I'm noticing is individuals are like, okay, I'll work for 4 hours. Even when you're at work, do you really just work for 4 hours straight? Now, if you're being honest with yourself, I know you don't, right? You check your Instagram maybe a little bit, or you have a little bit too much time out on your lunch break, whatever it is. You're not working straight for 4 hours. So goodness gracious, why on earth are you scheduling that at home or attempting to do that at home? So make it manageable, right? So how about this? Like, okay, for 1 hour, I'm going to do work. Then for 10 minutes, it doesn't have to be 30 minutes, doesn't have to be 45, doesn't have to be another hour. I'm going to go outside and take some deep breaths, or I'm going to go outside, I'm going to walk around the block. If you can't do that right now because you're being asked to stay inside, maybe you do 10 burpees, or maybe you give yourself, like literally you schedule in social media time, right? So make it manageable and realistic. Don't fall into that trap of overestimating your capabilities. Now, I know you're all Spartans and you can kick A out there on the race course, and you more than any other community are built for this resiliency. And you can fall into the planning fallacy too. So make it manageable, make it realistic. The other thing that I'm going to say is literally schedule downtime, right? And TV time or iPad time or screen time or iPhone time, whatever you want to call it, schedule it. This gives you permission, right? So one of the things that my clients are having a difficult time with, and that I've heard from you guys as well, is that like you'll feel really bad. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I watched 2 hours of TV today. You know what? It is what it is. We are where we are. This is the world we're living in right now. So is it possible for you to just schedule those 2 hours? Listen, I'm going to be super transparent right now, and you parents might be like, oh, Dr. Pence does that? I scheduled a bunch of TV time for my kids. You know why? Because I knew it was realistic. So we get up in the morning, we do our morning routine. Yeah, and they get TV time. You know when else they get it? A little bit during the day. And when else? A little bit at night. Because I know that's realistic. I know it's just going to happen anyway. So it's like now it's scheduled. But what it also allows my kids to do is know that during the times when it's not scheduled, they are on point with the things that I do have scheduled for them, okay? And the same goes for you as an adult. So schedule in that downtime, schedule in that TV time. The other thing I would say is really make time for your non-negotiables. Now, what are non-negotiables? Well, it's pretty obvious. Non-negotiables are things that you cannot negotiate out of your life right now, that they are your essentials, that if you do not have them, you will feel even worse, right? So what would those things be for me, for example? Definitely some activity time, right? I need to move my body at some point during the day. If it's not going outside for a run, that it's doing a 20-minute indoor workout, which by the way, we've got some of them, check them out. So that is really key for me. The other thing that's important for me is reading my book. I've got to do it. I have to do a little bit during the day, okay? It just helps ground me. It just helps calm me down, okay? So those are some of my non-negotiables. What are your non-negotiables? What are the things that if you did them every day, you know that it would make a complete difference in your mental state and well-being? Schedule those in, okay? So write it down, make it manageable and realistic, schedule in your downtime, right? Or your TV time or whatever you want to call it, iPad time, screen time, and then make sure you get time for your non-negotiables as well. The other thing I want you to consider when we're making a routine here and a schedule here is sleep. Sleep is essential right now. Like we've all heard it before that sleep is one of the things that really helps us maintain our physical health and our mental health at best. So how can you make sure that you are scheduling leading up to your sleep time things that wind you down, okay? Sleep is just key right now. So I want you thinking about that, okay? So that's how we create a morning routine. Okay, so you guys are asking a lot of questions, by the way, about race. I'm just going to tell you right now, I can't answer any of them. Spartan might get to them later, but I got nothing there for you, okay? All right, so the other question that I'm getting a lot is, I'm really bored, right? So what do? I'm really bored. I'm at home. Nobody's with me. I can't go outside. This is horrible. How do I not be bored anymore? All right, I'm going to give you an answer that you're not going to like. We have lost the art of being bored here, people. We are hyperstimulated, overproductive individuals, and we have lost the art of just not really having much to do and sitting with it. it's not a problem if you're bored, okay? This is gonna happen. It's part of the human experience. I know that if you have children and they're bored, it somehow is this massive catastrophe. It's okay for us to be bored sometimes. This is an endurance sport right now, okay? I'm not talking about the obstacle race of Spartan. I'm talking about what we're going through. It's not going away next week. It's not going away the week after, probably the week after or week after. This is an endurance sport. We are in this for the long haul, okay? So sprinting right now and doing all these super fun activities inside your house and learning Chinese and learning how to knit and learning how to cook all these fun new recipes all at once, you're gonna burn out from it. So you need to think of this as an endurance sport. You don't always have to be busy. Allow yourself the opportunity to be a little bit bored and sit with it, tolerate it, do some thinking. What would it be like to sit with your thoughts for 30 minutes, right? What would it be like to practice the art of solitude? Okay, so just know that you don't always have to keep yourself so busy, all right? This is the new normal. So I want you to think about like day 5 of this is probably gonna look like day 55, right? In the sense that it's, you know, we're not going to get the things back that we love doing, going to the gym, going to the movie theaters, going out to eat necessarily. You know, we're going to have to manage this. And what it looks like right now, if anything, it's only going to get more restrictive. So I want you to think about this as an endurance sport, not a race. Okay. So does coffee count as a non-negotiable? Yeah, 100% coffee counts as a non-negotiable. Thank you for asking that wonderful question. Okay, so another thing that's come up for me in terms of what are the things that I think people are struggling with and what am I hearing from a lot is that right now there are a lot of you out there who may be in recovery, right? So you may be in recovery from an eating disorder, you may be in recovery from some type of addiction, some form of addiction. You may be in recovery from a shopping addiction right now, which yes, is a very real thing. And right now, probably a very difficult thing to manage because you're stuck at home and what else is there to do? So, you know, to all of you individuals out there who are feeling really triggered by this, right? And feeling really uncertain and unstable in your recovery because of some of the things that were just because of what this is sort of creating for us emotionally and internally, but also literally the situations that we're in, right? Some of you may not be able to go to your meetings that you've been going to. I know a lot of recovery and addiction meetings have been canceled, appropriately so. And I know that those are your lifeline. So there's a few things that I want to suggest and recommend for individuals. One is make sure you are reaching out for support. More than likely, I would guess that 100% of you did not get to where you are today in your recovery without support. So reach out for their support. Use the Spartan community. There's a bunch of you out there. I know there are because I get those emails that you send to Joe about, you know, I spent 12 years drinking alcohol and now I run races. You know, I really struggled with addiction and now I've been in recovery for decades. I know you're out there. Reach out for support from each other. Acknowledge that this might be a difficult time, right? We find comfort in common humanity, okay? So the other thing is remember the fundamentals. So think about what were some of the things that got you to this point in your recovery where you did feel safe and stable and start implementing those right now. Again, structure could be a really helpful piece of that puzzle, right? The other thing is identifying your emotions and trying to regulate those appropriately. Right now, a bunch of you, I certainly have felt overwhelmed, okay? On Monday, I did a talk about overcoming the obstacle of being overwhelmed. So listen to it if you're feeling that way. So when we're overwhelmed, one of the things that we have a difficult time doing is identifying our emotions. And it's really important for us to identify emotions and express those appropriately and share them with the people in our inner trust, in our circle. So make sure you're identifying those emotions and expanding that vocabulary, right? So it's not just I'm happy, sad, disgust, surprised. It's I'm feeling really disappointed. I'm feeling really scared right now. I'm feeling terrified. I'm really feeling alone right now, okay? So use that emotional vocabulary with the individuals in your life. Use the coping skills that you've learned. Listen, just because externally there's a lot happening, it doesn't mean that you have everything you need inside of you already to help maintain your recovery, okay? So make sure you're utilizing those coping skills. Is it journaling? Is it Is it counter journaling, writing down those challenging thoughts and coming up with different thoughts for those? Is it meditating, engaging in mindfulness activities? Okay. So I want you really thinking about that. The other thing that I think is really important for all of you, not just those who, are trying to maintain your recovery, is right now, how can you really tap into your values? Okay. And so one of the things that I recommend everybody do at any, certainly at one point in their life, but hopefully regularly, is that they identify what their true values are. Like, what are your principles? So Spartan, we have our own principles of grit, commitment, self-awareness, integrity, wholeness. What are your principles? Okay. What are the principles by which you live your life? So one of the ways that you can figure that out is literally Google values, and you'll get lists of like 100, hopefully. Don't look at the list of 10, look at the list of 100. And I want you narrowing down your values. Okay. So looking at that list, if you were to ask yourself, what are the 10 values that matter most to me? Write down those 10 values. Once you have 10, narrow it down to 7, right? And then once you get 7, narrow it down to 3 and to 4. And then you've got your value system. And one of the things that I want you thinking about, sorry, my nose itches. One of the things I want you thinking about is, how do you remain in integrity with those values? And what I mean by that is, if you have a value, how do you make sure that your behaviors align with that value, right? And that's going to help you maintain A, your recovery, but B, just your mental health right now. So for me, for example, 2 of my values are adventure and family. So right now, family's pretty easy because we're stuck in this house together. We're kind of on top of each other. We're figuring it all out, right? But I'm also making sure to carve time out that is like specific value, family focused time. So adventure is another one. Ooh, right now it's a little bit hard to go on an adventure, right? Well, we're going to try today. We're going to load up in the car and just go for a drive. I know that not all of you have the luxury of doing that, but it's a way that I can continue to maintain being in integrity with my value system. And that allows me to just show up for myself and remain whole. Look at Joe DeSena. He's doing this every morning on this Be Unbreakable TV, right? He's showing up. He's continuing to do his physical activities and his stretching, which is one of his values. One of his values is being physically healthy, right? So what are the things that you're doing to maintain the integrity in your values? Okay. So that's an important way also to definitely maintain your recovery. Okay. So Heather, hi Heather, you're asking any advice on how to help teenagers get through this. Yeah, tough, right? Admittedly, I don't have teenagers yet. I have a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, but I've worked with teenagers a lot in my private practice over the last 15 years. So I guess I'll say a few things. One is honesty. Right now is a time when there's a lot of misinformation being spread. And one of the things that I think that can serve us the most as parents is to be honest with our children, age appropriately. Right? So obviously the way that I'm talking to my 5-year-old will be different than the way that you're going to talk to your teenager, whether it's 13, 17, 19. But I think honesty is really, really important right now. The other thing that I think is really important as it relates to structures, right, is boundaries, like setting those boundaries with our kids, because more than anything, and I talked about this on Wednesday, by the way, so make sure you go watch that video. I feel like I'm plugging myself, but whatever. One of the things that's really important in relationships and what keeps us safe are boundaries. So you making sure, Heather, that you're setting those boundaries, right, with your teenagers around what's okay and what's not okay right now, because things are a little bit different in the house. You can't be going out with your friends, that kind of thing, I think is really important. And explaining to them like the importance of that and the principle, that drives that. And as I just said before, like the values of your household, what are the values of your household that you want to make sure that you're maintaining through all of this and having those conversations with your teenager. The other thing that I would say too is, this is a bizarre time for all of us, certainly, and for kids and teenagers and young adults in particular, just because of where their brain development is. Like they may not be able to process things the way that us as adults are processing things, right? And so in a lot of ways, their brain is firing even more than our brain because their frontal cortex hasn't totally been developed yet. So, we want to just keep that in mind a little bit, that if our teenagers and our kids are a little bit more dysregulated, that's normal. That's just sort of what's happening in neuroscience and in the brain. So keep that in mind and maintain that structure as much as you can. Maintain those honest conversations, have that open communication with each other. I think those are really key. And trying to make it fun, pulling out, like I colored with crayons today and I was like, I love this. It was time to stop and I kind of wanted to keep going. So make sure that you're having fun with your family as much as you can and integrating states of play as well. We're actually going to start doing some episodes specifically for parents, which I think is going to be great. So Heather, make sure you tune into those too. Okay. All right. Another thing that I think is really important for us to just kind of review and discuss is how do you maintain motivation during this time, right? For a lot of you can't go to the gyms anymore. You're kind of blocked out from even running outside, for example, or engaging in that level of physical activity. So there's, how do I maintain my motivation with keeping myself active and keeping myself fit? How do I maintain my motivation in eating right? The Girl Scout cookies from 4 weeks ago that are still in my cupboard that I haven't touched and, have been able to restrain myself from just sound really delicious right now. How do I maintain motivation with my nutrition and the things that I'm fueling in my body? And how do I maintain motivation just to get up and to keep going every day when it feels like every day I wake up to more, difficult and painful news? Well, a few things. Go back to those values, okay? So really do that values exercise and return to those values. Give yourself permission to say, this is a value of mine. And if I know that if I behave in alignment with this value, I will feel better. It will be hard for me, but I will feel better. The other thing is, a lot of people think that we need to wait to be motivated and then we'll get momentum, but it totally works in reverse. We have to start gaining momentum and that helps motivate us. So whatever it is that you can do to engage in that, right? I encourage all of you to have an accountability partner. I call it an account-buddy. I didn't make up that term, by the way, but I think it's a great one. So who can you identify as your account-buddy through this? Who is the person that can hold you up, that can check in with you? Hey, did you do that activity today? Hey, did you do those 50 burpees today? Hey, did you meditate today? Hey, did you write in your journal today? I mean, the questions could go on and on, right? But make sure that you have an accountability partner. Now, it could be your spouse. Yes, it could be somebody else in your household, boyfriend, girlfriend, roommate. Could be somebody away from your house, a family member or a friend or a colleague and a coworker, right? But I think having somebody there to also help you, I think is really, really important. And making sure that you tell them too when you might need that help, right? So let's say, for example, you have committed to doing the burpees that Joe wants you to do, and you've decided that you're going to do 50 a day. Make sure you tell your accountability partner, listen, I've got to do 50 burpees a day and I really don't want to. So I need you to hold me accountable to that, right? I need you to send me a text message every 7 a.m. asking if I've done my burpees, okay? So really like informing your accountability partner what you might need in this, right? And listen, you guys have probably done this before when you've been training for Spartan races, if you're watching and you're one of those individuals that have, where you've used somebody to help you through this process. I mean, this is no different. We need our team, right? Like we need our tribe to help us get through this. So to help you with motivation, utilize the support team around you, okay? The other thing with motivation, I said this earlier, but we're in an endurance sport here. We're not in a sprint. So make sure that you're slowly approaching this, right? That you're not binging on all of the super fun things or the things that are gonna that you feel are going to keep you motivated all at once, right? Sort of like titrate them out a little bit and do one every day to help you stay motivated. The other thing I would say right now is that, the resources of this type of system, of like a Zoom type of system and Facebook Live, are really, really helpful. So make sure that you're tuning into those if you can, to keeping you motivated as well. Because often when we see other people, right, it's like we want to do. So the more, and it's hard for us right now because a lot of us, if we live alone, we're not seeing anybody, right? So if we see people, then we can, it's kind of contagious, right? And we'll want to do too. So make sure you're tuning into those for sure. Okay. Something else that is somebody else asked about is, how do I maintain an appropriate relationship with technology right now? I know, right? I mean, if you're at home and working from home, or if you're at home and struggling because maybe you lost your job or you've been furloughed, I mean, right now we are all on our devices, and there's good news of that and bad news. The good news is like just what I talked about. We can connect in ways that we haven't before. We can utilize systems that we haven't before to really allow ourselves to A, do our job, and B, keep up with our mental health and our physical health. The downside of that, right, is that we can become addicted. I mean, we can be sucked into the spiral of technology all day long. So there's a few things that I would recommend. One is schedule that time, right? So this goes back to the very first thing I talked about in terms of structure. Making sure that you are scheduling in time for you to be in front of the screen and then away from the screen, and really set those boundaries with yourself when you are away from the screen, right? Put it somewhere that, it's like, oh, I'm going to do my work, or I'm going to read my book, but I'm going to have my phone right next to me on vibrate. Every single notification popping up. How's that going to go for you? Yeah, I don't think it's going to go very well, right? Put your phone upstairs, take your book, go downstairs, take your Garmin that buzzes every time you have a notification off. Like really set those boundaries with yourself so that you can be successful in having a technology takedown, okay? So schedule in that time. Schedule in the time for it. Schedule in the time away from it. The other thing is, just know that right now, like your brain is operating in a way in which it's craving that reward system. And we all know that these apps have been, structured very much like a slot machine in order to give you the appropriate amount of reward right at the right time when you're about to put it down. And so how do you pick it back up? How do you not, how do you regulate yourself around it? So just know that that's kind of going on. Like sometimes I think that when we know better, we just do better, and having the wisdom around it can really be helpful. But also give yourself compassion. I mean, listen, this is going to be a long haul here. And there will be a time when when stuff begins to get better. That will happen, and it will come, and the slope will go down, right? The bell curve will move in the other direction, or the down direction, not the other direction. So just give yourself compassion. If you've been on social media a little bit more than you were last week, I mean, okay, it is what it is. We are where we are. Sort of that radical acceptance piece. If we cannot change what we've already done, keep moving forward. Try to do the best you can with setting those boundaries for yourself around your technology, and have compassion for yourself. That's really kind of all we can do in this. Okay. Oh my gosh, it's already 1:33. I've already talked for 30 minutes. I'm so grateful for you. There are some amazing resources out there that we are delivering to you that I really want you to take advantage of. Anything from, the physical fitness things that we're doing to these mind episodes. We are here for you, your resilience team in training, and you are here for us, right? I know I've talked about this probably every time I'm in front of the screen, but I'm not going to stop talking about it. So the value of interdependence. We rely on you, you rely on us. It is a mutual relationship. So we here at Spartan are so grateful that you show up for us. We will continue to evolve and show up for you as well. So keep tuning in. I'll see you next week. Take care.